South Africa's electricity power grid, while amongst the most sophisticated on the continent, has been under pressure for several years now. Despite this, the reality is that there have been only 3 days in the last 6 years where the utility has cut power to customers.
We also need capacity, of course, to grow the economy. We're very mindful that our customers have got projects which do require a lot of energy, and we must make sure that we have the capacity for them.
There's a suggestion that the lack of consistent baseload electricity has hindered the country's economy.
We are selling less power in 2014 than we sold in 2007. That tells you what's happened to the economy. If you track GDP growth and kilowatt hours sold, they've always tracked each other positively. So the correlation is always positive. And the corollary is true. If you take megawatt hours out of the economy, you're contracting it.
The country recently started using independent power producers, and around 1,000 megawatts of power are being introduced onto the national grid. But it's not without its problems.
The challenge is for a utility is to strengthen the backbone, basically the main transmission system. But the grid connections are fine. It's just to make sure that the overall grid has the strength. So the strengthening might happen hundreds of kilometers away from a particular independent power producer, but it may be a bottleneck to get the power from that independent power producer onto the main part of the grid.
However, the grid strength is the issue. Without it, the country's economy can't grow.
We simply do not have enough capacity to have sufficient reserve margin to do all the control on the grid that we desire. As a result, we have too little reserve margin, and any new renewable energy projects coming onto the grid which require grid support are actually starved of that support.
South Africa is building baseload capacity in the form of 2 giant 5,000 megawatt coal-powered power stations. The first, Medupi, should have been in service in 2011. It's been delayed for a number of reasons, but Eskom maintains it's back on track.
The first generator at the Medupi power station, which is the first of the new power stations to come on stream, will be connected to the grid by the end of this year.
We don't need 800 megawatts, we need 4,800, and we need KUSILA to follow very closely on the heels of Medupi before we know how much pent-up power in the system is going to be taken up.
The big industrial users will be watching the commissioning of the first generator at Medupi closely and whether it meets its end-of-year deadline.
I think a lot of smelters are quite concerned. A lot of energy-intensive users of electricity are looking at alternative means of supplying their own needs if the situation deteriorates.
South Africa has suffered from power and electricity constraints for around 6 years now. Eskom is trying to get things back on track again. The IPPs, those are the independent power producers, are also straining at the bit to feed power onto that grid. There's a lot of work still to be done, lots of planning, and we're hoping to see some nuclear input around 2025. Up until then, there are probably still going to be power cuts and load shedding. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV at Megawatt Park in Johannesburg.